this video is going to be suffering, because the Bible told me so. So, there's a Christian YouTuber right now with over 1 million subscribers, and they have a video going over why it's okay for us to suffer because God tells us so. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not really big on suffering, so how about we go ahead and let them do the talking, and then we'll see if we have any responses to some of the shenanigans that might come up during this.
Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God?
Me?
Creator?
Yeah, so I'm...
Okay, so here he's about to explain why he finds it hard to believe in God.
The more I look at the universe, just the less convinced I am that there is something benevolent going on. So if your concept of a creator is someone who's all-powerful and all good, all-powerful and all good, and I look at disasters that afflict Earth and life on Earth, volcanoes, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, disease, pestilence, congenital birth defects. You look at this list of ways that life is made miserable on Earth by natural causes. And I just ask, how do you deal with that? If there is a God, God is either not all-powerful or not all good. How do you deal with that?
How do you deal with that? Well, I think that's a good question. When I speak with agnostics and atheists, they say the same thing. How could a good God allow for a creation that has so many issues? Well, in short, I think we have to humbly ask ourselves if our assumptions about God are part of what's holding back our belief in God.
Well, if a Christian is telling me that a God is supposed to be all good and he loves me, I would assume certain things about that God. One of the things I would assume about that God is that they would have my best interest at heart, and I would think that my best interest at heart would mean, I don't know, not randomly developing ass cancer. But as it turns out, we unfortunately have a deity here who would let me randomly develop ass cancer, and because he would allow that, I would have to assume he doesn't have my best interest at heart, since I can't really do a whole lot with my life if I'm dead of ass cancer.
What if God, although perfect, allowed for humanity to experience things like sadness, death, sickness, imperfection, so that one day we will truly appreciate when the creation is complete?
Okay, I got a better question. Why would a all-powerful God need to do that? The only reason that we as human beings are so limited that we need to have comparison in order to understand if something is good or bad, the only reason that we need things like suffering to appreciate things like good is because God built us that way. The only reason that we have those shortcomings is because he programmed those shortcomings in us. Surely an all-good, all-perfect God would have a better system that he could utilize. Why would you, as the Christian, ostensibly worshiping an all-powerful God, limit the scope of your God's power such?
All right. Okay. Remember, according to the Bible, before humans were even created, the perfect world actually did exist. Yeah, God had angels who experienced basically the perfect world that Tyson says we all should be seeing. And those angels, did they appreciate it? Well, not all of them. In fact, many of them rebelled and turned against God.
I see what he's trying to do here. He's trying to say, well, God tried that once and it failed. Again, you're limiting the scope of your God. You are creating a God whose attempts at creating a utopia failed miserably because of his own lack of creativity. Why would you worship a God who is so limited when that God apparently is limited. Also, this comparison fails on its face because it pretends that people in this current system don't die and go to hell, which within the Christian mythos, they do. So if we've got a bunch of people who rebelled against God the first time, and a bunch of people who rebel against God the second time, surely the problem isn't his creation every time. Surely the problem is actually the guy pulling the strings, since he's the one creating this many fuck-ups.
They did not appreciate immortality. They did not appreciate the eternal life because it was all they ever knew. So what if part of creating humanity and allowing us to experience this lesser world is a part of God's plan to have beings who will truly and finally appreciate perfection?
Now, honestly, I would love to agree with what you're saying. It would make sense if we didn't have that one snag. People in this current system die and go to hell, at least according to you. Because of that, there's a massive amount of, we'll just go ahead and call them casualties, collateral damage that has to be suffered as a result of this. Would an all-powerful God even allow this collateral damage to happen? I have to wonder.
Well, that would make sense, because the biblical God says that there will come a day of resurrection, when this body of sickness is turned into an immortal body of healing, where this universe that is decaying will be transformed into the new heavens with no decay. And it says that even this earth that is wasting away will one day be transformed into the new earth.
Again, that's all well and good, but what do we do for the people who are already burning and suffering? Because apparently an infinite amount of time was not enough time to understand the glory of God, so a handful of years must certainly be plenty of time for people to understand that glory and appreciate. Oh, wait, hold on, this doesn't make any sense. This plan doesn't make any sense. It's one thing to say, oh yeah, well the earth will be renewed later, that'll make things better, but what about all of the lives that were lost in the process? What about all the people who are cast aside in the process? Do we just let them be chopped liver? Do we just accept the fact that, oh, well, God created angels and they took billions of years and still didn't appreciate God's glory, so surely these flawed creations with, like, I don't know, a couple tens of years, they have plenty of time to figure this shit out. Maybe there's going to be a couple of casualties along the way. Do we just ignore those?
So, according to the Bible, the world that Tyson says should exist will exist. But before it does, God wants a people to exist within it who will truly appreciate it and will choose Him.
You know, if you didn't want your God to sound like a scorned lover, then maybe you shouldn't use language that makes him sound exactly like a scorned lover.
And you know what really helps you to appreciate something? When you experience what it's like to not have it. You see, we will appreciate the new heavens, the immortal body, the perfect earth. Why? Because God allowed for us to first experience this world.
Fun fact, an all-powerful God would be able to make you experience something even if you had not experienced it. He could implant those memories into you. He could impregnate your brain with the ability to comprehend what it would be like to live a mortal life shackled to a mortal coil. If you try to operate under the assumption that you must experience those things for yourself, again, you are limiting the power of that God. You are allowing that creator deity to have fewer abilities. And that seems counterintuitive to the idea of the perfect omni-God that Christians seem to believe in.
And so when Jesus returns, all wrongs will be made right. All tears will be wiped away. So in a way, we are still within the process of creation.
I like the language. All tears will be wiped away, as if God wasn't the one that created the scenario where the tears had to happen in the first place. It's like being in an abusive relationship. It's not okay that your husband wiped away your tears after he was done violently beating you. You don't like the fact that he violently beat you. Him wiping away the tears doesn't change the fact that that happened. If God's all-powerful and omnipresent, no matter what bad thing happens to you, it all comes back to God. The buck stops there. Vice Rhino's in my chat, and that's ruined everything for me.
Because God's ultimate creation will be complete when the new heavens and new earth are established with his immortal children who have chosen to be on his side. And so I submit to you that you can almost look at it like this. When a painter is working, there is a process between when the paintbrush first touches the canvas until the painting is complete. We have not yet seen the completed painting. We are still within the process of God's creative process.
I will admit that that means that we as humans would have a limited perspective. But here's the thing. A limited perspective does not mean that we do not have an invalid perspective. Yes, I can't tell that there's a lot of people burning around me if I happen to be in a house that's on fire, but that doesn't mean that my perspective on being on fire is invalidated, or I will hurt any less or feel any less upset that I am on fucking fire. I don't care at that point that there's 20, 30, 40 people around me who are also burning. I am still burning, and I do not think that my experience being limited invalidates that fact.
We won't see the finished painting until he completely rests. We see that he rested on the seventh day in Genesis, foreshadowing of how one day he will have an ultimate rest when Jesus returns on the ultimate seventh day. When everything is completely finished, evil is completely away, we see the resurrection, we see the new world, we exist in it with Christ. That will be the ultimate rest, and that will be when we are truly seeing the finished result of God's creation.
So I'm going to go ahead and give you an example. It's going to be a rough one, but just as a fun example. Let's say that your parents are making a turkey dinner. Now, you don't know that to get that turkey, they brutally beat somebody in the grocery store in order to get the turkey so that they could make it. Now, you eat the turkey, you're super happy about that finished product, and they go, you see, if you had known about the process that it took for us to get here, where you're enjoying this delicious turkey, then you might not have appreciated the end result as much. And then you ask what happened, and they go, oh yeah, no, we beat somebody violently in the line, stole their butterball turkey, brought it home, and then we cooked it up. And you're just sitting there horrified eating the turkey going, why was that necessarily part of the process? Why did that have to happen? I don't understand why you needed to do that. Surely there were other ways you could have obtained a turkey. And the parents are just sitting there looking at you going, no, it's okay. Trust the process. That's the same thing happening here with God. Surely there's other ways to go about the process of creating a good and perfect world than causing all of us to suffer in the meantime. Surely there's better ways to do this that don't involve ass cancer.
We're still within it. We're still in the process. He's still painting. He's still coloring the pages of his book. And we are within it. So don't become discouraged when you see an unfinished result. We're not there yet. But it's coming.
And I'll be honest, it's been coming for the past, 2,000 some odd years? At some point, you just need to accept that Jesus is both the king of lying and edging.
And we will appreciate it because we have been able to see the process. It's really deep.
Did this dude just talk about his own words as if they're very deep? Did he just unironically do the thing that every edgy teenager does after writing their 15th poem about how much their life sucks, ironically from a very limited perspective? It's very deep. It's very deep.
And so that idea of God, which is how the Bible describes it, It's very practical in light of the world that we now see.
If as we probe the origins of things, we bump up into the bearded man, if that shows up, we're good to go, okay? Not a problem. If you got some good evidence, bring it, bring it, bring it, okay?
So, evidence.
Ah, yes, evidence. That one thing that apparently a lot of Christian apologists are just allergic to.
Well, I think there will always be an element of faith when it comes to God.
All right, so not evidence. Got it.
Because when you look at how he operates throughout the Bible, it's always faith, this idea of trusting in something without evidence. It's faith that unlocked God's promises in Scripture. You know, Abraham, he had to have faith that God was speaking to him, and in trusting that voice of God, he then relocated his entire family, and then he was blessed for doing that because he acted on faith.
Man, you seem to have forgotten one of the most important parts of that story. You know, the part where Abraham brought his firstborn up to create a sacrifice, and the sacrifice was just his son, and he was about to plunge a knife into his son, and you have to ask yourself, how did the infinite creative God not come up with a scenario that didn't involve almost killing his son? Can you imagine what would have happened if his knife had gotten just like a couple of inches closer to his son's neck or wherever he was about to stab in that moment? And God's just like, dang it, don't have the power to rewind time, but at least you had faith in me.
Noah had to have faith to build an ark so that he could be saved from the flood, right?
Really, the biggest amount of faith he had to have there was not whether or not his family would survive the flood. It's whether they would survive the inevitable genetic bottleneck that happens when you try to repopulate the Earth with such a small gene pool that Noah had at the end there. Both the animals and himself. It's not just the cheetahs that ended up as inbred as they could be. If the Noah's Ark story is true, then we are all sister, cousin, wives, husbands.
But he had to have faith that it was going to rain in the first place. And so he was blessed after he acted upon faith. And so all throughout the Bible, we see that faith is what unlocks God's promises. And so if that is the case, if faith is the thing that unlocks the promises of God, we can see why the greatest promise, inheriting his kingdom, would have to be unlocked with a great act of faith.
So there's a couple of issues here. One, back in Bible times, people didn't have to have as much faith in God as we apparently have to do right now, because back in Bible times, people had direct conversations with God, apparently, and God did things that directly showed that he was exercising his power in the real world. Moses parting the Red Sea, the pillar of fire and smoke obscuring and protecting the Israelites during the flight from Israel, the literal angels that would come to people and tell them, by the way, it's okay that you cheated on your husband. Don't worry. That wasn't cheating. That's God inside you. It's okay that you, Mary, age 12, are getting impregnated by God, age infinite. But there's another part of this that feels kind of weird. The inheriting the kingdom of heaven part. Now, I don't know about you, but when I inherit something, I imagine that I am getting ownership or partial ownership of something. The way that heaven's described in the Bible, we don't inherit the kingdom of heaven. We just kind of rent there. We're not inheriting anything. We just happen to get to live in heaven. It's not inheriting your dad's house if you just live in the basement of your dad's house while he's still there. You didn't inherit anything. You're just allowed to live there.
And what greater act of faith could there be than believing that someone rose from the dead?
I mean, literally just believing in anything that we can't see is probably the biggest act of faith there is. Just saying. It's like when you suspect a partner of cheating on you and they do everything in their power to make sure you can't see their phone, their mail, at anything they do, and they're leaving the house for multiple hours at a time without communicating to you why or how or any of that. And you're just expected to have faith that they're not cheating on you. But at the end of the day, you can't really exercise that faith because you're just sitting there going, There's 9 to 10 hours of your time every other day not accounted for, and you are literally hiding every method of communication you have from me, or even funnier, deleting messages before I get a chance to come near your computer or your phone or anywhere like that. Like, you're being asked to have faith in something that you're fairly certain you can't have faith in. It's like with the Jesus thing. Let's say that you need to have faith that Jesus is alive and well and he's resurrected. But every time you try to get an example of Jesus being alive, they're like, oh no, he's somewhere like several miles away. My Jesus who lives in Canada, you don't know him. He goes to another school.
And so you see why the resurrection and Jesus, this is not something God made to be something simple and easy to comprehend or believe. No, it had to be something that you would need faith for. The kingdom is the reward for that faith. That's the way he's always worked. And so you see, faith is an important concept and we can't discard it. There's always going to be an element of faith, absolutely. But I will say this. I would say that you can reach a point where your confidence in God becomes so strong, so solid, that you move into a position of not just thinking God is real, but you can get to a point where you just know through every fiber of your being that God is real.
And like with your wife definitely not cheating on you, you can become adjusted to the state of affairs that you're in, no matter what it is. You can become adjusted to believing in a God that never answers your prayers. You can become adjusted to believing you're going to inherit something that you are never shown. You can become adjusted to tricking yourself into any number of things. That doesn't make those things real. Your wife is still probably cheating on you. She's not hiding those messages because she thinks that she's going to get you a really cool Christmas present and she wants you to not know what the Christmas present is quite yet. She's doing it because the guy probably has a bigger dick than you. Or, more likely, you're probably not that great of a husband and he treats her better. I don't know. Something has happened in your relationship and it's not too great. The point is, you can become adjusted to believing things that are not true. That doesn't make them true.
And we explored that in a recent video. And one reason we wanted to release this video is because we do get a lot of questions regarding, is there evidence for God? And I always say that one of the greatest apologetic tools, one of the greatest things that we can present for evidence is actually Bible prophecy. And so if you know anyone who asks about evidence for God, I highly recommend some of our videos in the Bible prophecy playlist because it shows the way that the Bible has for centuries, for thousands of years, predicted things that would happen, and those things have always come to pass.
Things we're supposed to be looking at when we know that the Bible never fails with its prophecies. So I guess Nebuchadnezzar has destroyed Tyre, right? And Egypt's a barren wasteland? I mean, Jeremiah literally said that Nebuchadnezzar would conquer Egypt, and I don't think that actually happened, did it? Also, the Nile River was supposed to dry up, according to Ezekiel, but that doesn't happen either. Apparently, Damascus was also supposed to be destroyed, but it never was really laid to waste and uninhabited forever. It's currently the capital of Syria, but, it's definitely been laid to waste forever. Oh yeah, the Egyptians were also supposed to adopt the language of the Canaanites. That was in Isaiah. And Egypt and Assyria was supposed to convert to the Hebrew religion. That didn't really happen either. That's from Isaiah as well. Man, it's weird how many of these prophecies didn't actually happen. And it's weird how much evidence isn't actually shown. And it's weird how we're supposed to believe that this God actually loves us, but he is probably the biggest suffering fetishist ever. All in all, I don't agree with any of the assertions made in the video. I don't agree that from a limited perspective, we can't have valid opinions about our own place in the universe. I don't agree that the Bible has actually had prophecies that have come to pass in recent years, despite the myriad of them that haven't. All it takes is one failed biblical prophecy to throw the entire book out the window when it comes to its ability to be a prophetic tool. So at the end of the day, I think we're just going to agree with Neil deGrasse Tyson here. God may or may not exist, but what we don't have is really, really good reasons to believe, at least not at present. But what do you think? Let me know what your opinions are in the comment section below. I do want to make sure that everybody's voices are heard, and I hope that some of you enjoyed this more classic approach to doing a video. It's something that I haven't done in a really, really long time, and this was actually more fun than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, let me know in the comment section below what you think, and hopefully you enjoyed everything that we've done here. With all that said though, as always everybody, insert end of video tagline here. Suris parable. Anyways, thank you all for making it to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed, especially if this one makes it onto the end of the one I'm working on right now. You know, the one that's definitely not actually a classic Suris video, but it pretends it is. It does a pretty good job of pretending it is. Anywho, let's go ahead and get to the fan art section. The only non-classic thing about that video is the fan art section's at the end of the video and not the beginning. This first one we have here is from, I'd love to say who it was from, but I forgot to scroll up where I was supposed to go. There we go. This one is from Cricket. I don't like the skirt. Might make it different later, but here you go for now. An e-girl Suris from when I was watching a stream. Razor Storm, thank you for gifting a tier 1 sub to the Morbid Place. I feel like I'm already basically just an e-girl on the internet. All things considered. I actually like the skirt. I'm not gonna lie. I like the skirt. I don't know if I could make this a model. I don't know if I would be able to get away with making this one a model. Anyways, the next one we have here is from Paprika. Another thing. What the fuck? Why are there two of me? Why are there two of me? Am I saying what the fuck because there's two of me? Or what am I doing here? The next one we have here is from Girl with Teface. I made this in an app called Reroll that my sister and I backed on Kickstarter a while back. I saw Classic Suris pop up on a couple of the subathon videos, and I knew it was time. More to come. Ironically, this is also popping up on a Classic Suris video. You know, a video pretending it's a Classic Suris video. Those were the days. Those were the days. As always, everybody, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's move on to the credits. So it was the two panels. Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability that Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.